Yo guys, what is up? Max on our first Descendant video, and today I want to go over the dev live stream that happened last night. I stayed up late and watched this, and this dev stream was really interesting because not only did they talk about the update that's coming out in a few days here with Ultimate Yujin, but they also gave us kind of a broader scope of the roadmap for literally the next year of like the first Descendant, and I want to kind of break it down, not only what's coming, but also my opinions on the direction that the game is headed and more. Hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Let's get right into it. So let's start by talking about what's coming out in this coming update on December 4th, which brings a lot of things. The first of which is Ultimate Yujin. They've buffed Ultimate Yujin's just base abilities. He should be able to get like buffs and provide buffs to himself as well as his teammates. They're also combining a few of his Transcendent modules that were for base Yujin, while also adding brand new Transcendent modules. The first one that they showed off is this Combat Protocol. Combat Protocol reads that you cannot buff allies, but you increase your self-buff effects. Once again, base Yujin will be able to buff his own abilities, but this amplifies those self-buffs while also allowing or not allowing you to buff your teammates. So more of like a solo Yujin build. Now, an interesting thing about this module and a way that it seems like they're going with him is they gave him HP scaling on a lot of his skills. So for example, this skill costs a percentage of your HP every second. It costs 5 HP, but per 10% of your HP, you get 15% increased skill power. So I think you're going to be building Yujin with a lot of HP, and a lot of his skills actually scale off of HP. They talked about how he's going to be kind of like this like resource management Descendant, where you're going to be constantly kind of managing your HP, where you're draining your HP to use your abilities, but also benefiting from having max HP, as well as ways to get HP back. I'm imagining it's going to be pretty survivable, but his gameplay sounds relatively interactive, which I dig. Kind of reminds me of Glay, but a little bit better, because Glay kind of lost a little bit of that like management side of her health on her abilities. The next Transcendent mod that they showed off is a Battlefield Medic, which whenever you give a buff to your allies, you get this like passive bonding energy, which at level 3, after you've buffed your allies a few times, give you and all your allies skill crit rate, skill crit damage, and the craziest part is 30% additional cooldown reduction. I'm imagining that's going to be pretty insane for certain Descendants, especially ability spam Descendants. Getting 30% cooldown on top of their abilities with skill crit rate and damage sounds crazy. I'm imagining like Keelan and things like that would be pretty nuts with that. They also changed some of his abilities. This deploy regenerative wave allows you to like shoot out these slow moving orbs. I'll show you some gameplay of what that looks like. So there's a slow moving orb that pulses damage. The fourth ability also, all of these like buffs deal damage. So like the amount of damage that Yujin was dealing and what it looked like was actually pretty impressive. There's an orb that he puts out. That's his fourth ability, that like big AoE that's ticking for like 7 million crits. Plus he's using the 1s and the 2s, and all of these things are doing big damage, but they're also all applying buffs to you and your teammates and healing y'all. Actually looks pretty sick. It doesn't look like he's slouching in the damage department either. The next thing they showed off is a new infiltration operation, Forbidden Sanctuary. Now, I'm going to be honest, this was the like my personal low point of the stream in terms of things that they were showing off and adding, just because like my big issue is they keep adding these like infiltration operations, dungeons, whatever, and I feel like they all just look exactly the same, fighting the same enemies. Like this literally looks like, you know, an area that we've been 100 times and enemies we've fought 100 times. So I wasn't too excited about this. I really hope that they like do some more different color palettes and biomes and stuff like that. Everything that we are doing dungeon wise is always like kind of like this dark red, metal, black, gray look. And you know what I mean? It'd be really cool to get some like dungeons and things like that, in my opinion, in like a forest biome or a tundra biome. A lot of these like later dungeons that they keep adding, the more difficult, supposedly the more difficult, challenging ones, kind of all feel very samey. Obviously, I haven't played this one yet, but just off of like the initial vibes, I wasn't overly impressed. It is cool that we're getting another like infiltration operation now. Next, we're getting a new boss. This is going to be the Grim Reaper. This is a souped up version of Deathstalker, and the fight actually looks pretty cool. It's got a different skybox, and the Grim Reaper moves around a lot. They said that he's gonna be like inflicting debuffs on you, and it looked like there was this kind of like memory mini game as well while you were fighting. Looked like an engaging fight. Hopefully not something that dies instantly. And the armor that you get from this is also looking really, really cool. This is the armor that you get from farming Grim Reapers. Kind of got this like death stalker kind of evil look to it. I really, really dig it. Definitely think you could customize it, because I don't love the default characteristics or the default colors. But definitely very detailed. It looks pretty sick. Definitely will be farming. They also showed off new external components that look like they're built specifically for Bunny. When you have a sprinting speed of 1,450 or higher, you get Sprint Accelerator, which whenever you use a continuous damage type skill, you increase your electrical power, and then when you're dealing damage with electrical skills, you get MP heal, so you're getting MP back. Seems like it would just allow for more like infinite Bunny sprinting builds, which is cool. I feel like we kind of already have that already, but cool new external component set. Next, they're adding new trigger modules, specifically aimed at unique weapons, so like Freyna's 4 or Valby's 4. I really, really dig this. This one for Freyna specifically reads that whenever you're attacking with a continuous damage type skill, you inflict Arcane Infection on targets. When attacking targets afflicted with Arcane Infection with a unique weapon type skill, deal additional damage equal to the Arcane Infection or Infection damage. So your Arcane Infection is going to be like 500% skill power on a 1-second interval. And then when you're using your exclusive weapon, you're constantly triggering this over and over, in addition to all of the damage that it's dealing. Should be a pretty nice buff for like Freyna's 4. For example, there was also this one, Instant Acceleration, that whenever you use a movement restriction type skill, you get 80% increased movement speed. So like Blair's Flamethrower, it slows you down. Now that just can like give you 80% movement speed. They're also adding some new melee modules and a new trigger module, particularly for Valby, which looks kind of insane. This is whenever you're attacking targets hit by a ground dot type, skills with global dot type skills deal skill damage to target, increases this damage more against Colossi/Commanders. So like every time that you're hitting an enemy that is a Colossus, for example, you're doing like an additional 6,400 skill damage, and it doesn't look like there's like any sort of cooldown on this, and the damage interval is 0.5, but I'm imagining you could stack it multiple times with multiple orbs. So all of your orbs that you're stacking on Valby 4 are just dealing tons of additional damage. Looks pretty strong. Then they get to the monthly balance, which they are buffing up Ajax. They didn't really mention, I asked multiple times in their Q&A, but then I guess they didn't see it. They didn't talk about buffs to his like jump ability build, jumping jacks, or like his real like damage output. It was more so kind of reworking his barriers, as the barriers right now just like don't really fit into the current meta, and so that they're buffing up the damage. They're gonna make them easier to use. You can get like ammo regen from his 1 now, or like the ability to never reload from using his 1. So they showed off some like sword gameplay where you could just like spam your sword by enemies affected by your 1. They also showed off this kind of dash ability, which I thought looked pretty similar to Kyle, but you can kind of like slam your barrier into them, so it's easier to like proc that buff. And then they also showed off his 4th ability, which previously was this, you put down a dome, and that dome is stationary, which doesn't really work with a lot of the content in the game. So now you can create this dome on his 4th ability that just follows you around, which does look pretty cool. Next, they got to balance changes that they're going to be looking at, which they said that they're going to be buffing up Freyna, Valby, and Viessa. I thought this was pretty funny. I'm talking about it more when we get to like my opinions on everything, but I feel like all of these Descendants are pretty strong and already got recent buffs. They did say that they're going to be buffing up like Enzo and other Descendants as well, but it was funny that these were the focus. They're also going to be buffing up weapons. The Hive Master, seemingly not as strong as people were hoping it to be. Fallen Hope looks like it's finally getting some buffs, specifically tuning to work better with Freyna, and the Truly Deadly Arson's also going to be getting buffed. That gun is very cool, but very lackluster when it comes to damage, so good changes there. They're also going to be adding the Ancestor module trading. This was originally supposed to come out with trading, but they delayed it because of the their original implementation of it had a fee of like caliber, which people didn't like to trade. So now you can trade your Ancestor mods with people, which should be pretty cool. It's going to be a way for like free-to-play players to earn caliber, which I think is desperately needed in this game. They're also adding a new Christmas theme in Albion with a bunch of new skins. This is one they showed off on Viessa. This is one on Freyna. It's like a reindeer skin. There was also this one, Toy Soldier, another sweater. We got the universal polar bear skin for males. They showed across Albion, and then these are two skins that are going to be coming in event updates. I like this one. It's kind of like a goth Christmas. And then this one, which looked a little bit like a reskin of a thing that we've already had. I don't know. It looks familiar. This was there showing off on Haley. And then more universal skins are going to be coming December 18th. My camera's kind of in the way, but they're adding a business uniform for males, a wet t-shirt for females, and then like athletic wear for both. They also mentioned that the Lounge 2.0 update is kind of delayed. It was originally, I think, supposed to drop with this, but they wanted to focus on content improvements and getting the game in a better state. So they're delaying the Lounge improvements and like new areas and stuff like that to a later date so that they can focus on getting the game in a better spot. And then we get into like the big roadmap basically for almost the next year. So season 3 is getting extended. There's going to be basically, I mean, we got season 3 in summer. We're not getting season 4 till next summer. So like one season a year, which is kind of crazy. But they explained why they're doing this. And so they've got season 3, episode 2 launching in January, season 3, episode 3 launching in February, season 3, episode 4 launching in May, and then season 4 is finally dropping in summer. Now, in January, they're going to be doing a breach tracking field, which I think is a new area. They're going to be buffing Enzo and more weapon improvements. In February, Dia is launching. They're going to be changing the mutant cell system. I believe they mentioned that they're not going to have mutant cells as like drops that you need to farm. They're going to be basically like you could just like pick which one you want to use. I think they seem to be reworking that system. They're also going to be adding a new Legion dungeon and an onslaught mode. Onslaught mode basically sounds like a horde mode where you fight increasingly difficult waves. You can earn currency in the mode, which you can then spend on like defenses and turrets. So they're doing a beta in February, then launching that in May is their plan. They're doing a research time boosting event, which I thought this was really funny because I pitched them this exact idea in a meeting like almost a year ago. There's another thing that they're kind of using, but I was talking to them about crafting timers and was like, I don't understand, like, if you're a new player, the reason that new players don't stick with the game is because you play the game, you start a crafting timer, and then you're basically incentivized to log off. Because, like, if I want to just level up my Ajax and I have to wait, like, 7 hours to get a catalyst to level up, then I'm just going to log off the game and come back the next day to get the next catalyst, then level him up. And it seems like you're actively losing players with these, like, crafting timers. And so I told them that they should make a system where instead of being incentivized to get off the game, you're incentivized to play the game. Anytime that you have a craft going, you can do select missions or certain things to boost and reduce that time so that you're actually incentivized to play the game rather than get off. And they loved that idea, and it seems like they're finally implementing it. That's going to be this research time boosting event. There's going to be quests that you can go do and challenges that if you do those challenges, you cut down on your research times, which I think is a no-brainer. So glad that they're doing that. We're also going to get an undersea-based dungeon. This sounds sick. I wish they talked a little bit more about this because it was kind of just directly going back to my last point and that the biomes are getting a little tiresome. So hopefully that looks sick. They're going to do another boost pass, new weapons, and just more like balance changes. They're also going to be putting the Abyss bosses on a monthly rotation. So every month is going to be a rotating, not a new Abyss boss, but they're going to like rotate them in and out. Then in May, the launch of the Onslaught mode. With like some difficulty changes, if I'm understanding that correctly. And farming loop, they talked about how they want to like improve the end game farming loop, and how they want to give players motivation to farm and end game content to take those gear into. So they're really gonna be taking a look at reworking kind of the structure of the game a bit. They're also going to be launching with Alt SEMO and new weapons. And the reason they said they're doing all of this is they want to get the game into a better spot with like weapon balance and end game balance and farming, and basically tune up the whole game so that when season 4 launches, they can just focus on like new content and new awesome things, and the game and the balance of things are going to be in a better spot. And then with Season 4, Episode 1, they're launching Corel's Final Battle Mega Dungeon with new dungeon systems, Transcendent weapons, which is crazy. It was something we were talking about when the game first came out of how cool it would be to have Transcendent weapons. We're also going to get a new Descendant, Ultimate Haley, and a overhaul of the main story. So all of that sounds pretty good. There's also going to be a bunch of like free login events and incentives to get a bunch of things if you are returning to the game. And then they're also doing this event period, which is another thing that I recommended to them in a meeting a while ago, like almost a year ago, is that they should do like how like Warframe and other games do it, where they get like double XP weekends. They're basically going to be doing that, where, for example, I hate leveling my Arcade Tuning in Sigma Sector. There's going to be a Sigma Sector Arcade Tuning like weekend, where if you play, you're going to get increased gains. They're only doing a 20% bonus, which I don't love. Like, I think it should be at least double. Like, why hold back 20%? You know, these events are like to get people to log in and to play the game, and like 20% is not that much. So I hope that, but by the time this rolls around, they might like reconsider maybe buffing those up. They're also going to be doing a year-end lounge party where you can like pick a team, the style team or the power team, and whatever team you pick is the rewards you'll get. And like whatever team wins, you get like the final reward if you're on that team. And then that was kind of it. They did some Q&A, and there wasn't too much from the Q&A. So now that we've talked about everything that's coming up in the future, I kind of want to go over my opinions of it, which some of you may not like at all, but I just kind of want to say them. So I've been pretty frustrated with the direction that TFD is going, to be honest with you. TFD is one of my most played games of all time. It's one of my favorite looter shooters of all time. But I think they've really pigeonholed themselves into just a never-ending cycle right now that is really, you know, we're seeing it in real time, is that they're having to push back content updates. They're constantly having to make changes. They're constantly having to do monthly balance and changes to Descendants and to weapons and everything. And I think all of that entirely stems from their resistance to nerfing stuff. And I think they've really pigeonholed themselves and the development of this game due to that policy. For example, I think this all personally started with, it wasn't even Serena, it was Freyna. Ultimate Freyna, when they came out with her, was so powerful that she could outclear Bunny and every other Descendant in the game. And instead of nerfing her, they gave us Inez. And they kind of saw that unless a character that comes out is really powerful, unless that new character is really powerful, people won't play them. You know, like Keelan came out, and no one really touched Keelan. People didn't really play him. You weren't seeing Keelans in the tower, and just like, it just wasn't, you know, if they're going to be investing a ton of time and money into development of a Descendant, they need that Descendant to be worthwhile to play. And so I think Keelan fell short, and then they're like, wow, you know, we need a Descendant that they're going to play. We need someone that can like rival what's going on with current characters. And then they gave us Inez, and Inez mopped the floor with Freyna. And that was another example of power creep. And they, you know, they weren't going to nerf Inez, and then they launched Serena, and then Serena mopped the floor with Inez. And it's just this constant cycle of power creep. And then they're like, holy shit, this is getting out of hand. We need to tone these things back. So they nerfed Inez just a tiny little bit. Inez is still incredibly strong. She's still so good. But the backlash that they got from nerfing Inez gave them this policy that they were never going to nerf again. And it came at the worst possible time, because Serena was a problem like we've never seen before. Serena was just ridiculously powerful, right? She could clear all of the bosses, good at mobbing, unkillable, tank, AoE, everything. She did it all. And that was right at the time where they adopted a policy, because the Inez, you know, pushback that they weren't going to nerf again. And now they're in a constant loop of having to, like, I was laughing at it, that they're having to buff Freyna, Valby, and Viessa again, because I think those characters were in a great state. But every time that they add something new, it needs to be more broken than the last, because there's just a constant creep of power creep in this game, and there's nothing they can do about it because they can't nerf anything. So anytime that they add something that's strong, they have to go back and rework everything else to catch it back up. And I think they're just in a constant loop now where they're going to never be able to like really develop, and they're hindering new content development for the game because of they're just getting stuck constantly buffing everything to the next thing. They got to rework the entire weapon system again. And how do they buff weapons without inadvertently like buffing Serena? And you see this with the new Descendants. They added Alt Luna, and they've got to make, you know, Alt Luna really strong, and Alt Luna's fucking crazy, and she kills everything. And then they launched Harris. Then Harris isn't like as enticing as like Haley, and everyone's playing Haley, and they're like, why isn't anyone playing Harris? And it's because they're in this massive power creep cycle, and the content is not diverse enough to have different roles. They're literally removing healers and the ability to play it as a healing support character because the game is just so focused on clear speed and DPS. Warframe doesn't have this issue as much. Warframe definitely does have its own issues, but it doesn't have this many issues because there's clear roles that the different characters can fill, and there's different content niches. You've got like high tier defense where you need someone that can protect the like main target and, you know, put a bubble around it, for example, with, you know, the different frames, or using like limbo to protect your target. There's different niches that the different warframes fill, and TFD has just gone completely out of that. And anytime that they've had teamwork, I don't know, they can't seem to figure it out. So anything that is teamwork oriented, they're nerfing. We saw this with all of the bosses in the game. Originally, when the game came out, you had difficult bosses that required teamwork that were interesting to play. And now there's no reason to even kill those bosses anymore because they've removed all the rewards. And that was what set the first Descendant apart from all of these other looter shooters, was the boss ladder, which I thought was challenging and interesting. Now all those bosses are super weak. They've nerfed the daylights out of them. You could just do them solos. There's no reason to play with people. They brought it up today, like in this stream, where like, oh, we've got this party system and no one's using it. Yeah, because you keep removing all of the reason to play party content. There's no reason to play party content. They're like talking, they just had to nerf the new like super massive dungeon because people were struggling. I don't know. It's just this endless cycle that I think they're stuck in, where they keep pushing the game in a direction. People are asking me why I'm not playing, and it's mainly because I don't like the direction that the game is going. Now, there's the crowd of people that are like, never nerf in a PvE game, and I think this is a prime example of why nerfs are important. Nerfs help create build diversity. You see it constantly in some of the most successful loot-based games in the genre, where like Path of Exile, for example, has to do these nerfs because if the same build was the strongest build for the next 10 seasons, they'd have nothing to be able to, like, you know, bring players back with. Giving nerfs and allowing for new content to flourish, and new builds and new synergies to flourish, is what helps keep these looter shooter games alive. And the issue that these devs are running into is because they're not nerfing, they constantly have to make things more powerful, and then the baseline just keeps going up and up. If you're nerfing, you can keep the baseline at a certain line. When things go above, you bring it back. Things go up. You constantly are keeping your baseline balance. When you never nerf, the baseline balance just keeps going up and up. So anytime that they add or adjust anything into the game, you're just going to need to buff everything else up behind it. And it constantly keeps moving and moving. And that's where they keep seeing frustrations with, you know, everything falling behind, is because they keep moving the needle higher and higher. And it's just a massive issue of power creep. And I think it's making new things not interesting in the game, because anytime that they add something that's to the game, like they just added this weapon, like this assault rifle, I'm blanking on it, the Hive Master. They just added the Hive Master. They're already having to buff it because it just doesn't keep up with the ridiculous levels that like skill Descendants have gotten to. So that's kind of my rant. I really think that the devs need to take a look, and I know this isn't a popular opinion. I know people might not like the idea of nerfing in this game, but I really do think for like the genuine health of the game, it's super important. And we're seeing that literally with this season is they've got to delay content. That's the biggest thing, is if they, let's say they just snipped Serena at the bud when she came out and they nerfed her damage or they nerfed her survivability or gave him some sort of downside, right? Let's say they just nerfed Serena and so they put her at the same balance level as like Viessa or Valby, right? Right there, now they can focus on tons of new content and new things that are interesting, and they can devote their development time to making new awesome things. But what have we seen them have to do is they constantly have to change the way that their new content is being added and constantly bringing things up. Wall Crasher got decimated by Serena. They had to make a bunch of changes and specifically tune its damage to be resistant to Serena. It's been a problem since day one, and it's really affecting them being able to make new content and add interesting stuff to the game because they constantly have to keep buffing and balancing things up to the new baseline. So yeah, that's kind of my rant. Just wanted to say my piece on it. I really hope that TFD does incredible. I hope it brings back a ton of players with this new content. The things on the horizon are looking great, but I really do think that they're pigeonholing themselves by their like balance model. And it's something that's been frustrating me for quite a while. So you guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. New content's looking pretty cool. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Peace.